So I love that there is fake news about fake news. So the fake news about fake news is the fact that fake news doesn't exist. But fake news actually exists. There is fake news. So what you can do to combat fake news is by what? Being consistent. So if a business is consistent with their story, ensuring that they constantly have stories out there about what they do, how they do it, whenever there's a negative story, aka fake news, what happens is that there's enough positive news, there's enough truth out there to combat the fake news. That's on one side. On the other side, a business that has invested in their community, has invested in promoters, in influencers. So when there is fake news, those promoters and influencers now become supporters. They come in and defend the business. So you'll find that, I'm sure you've seen heavy social media arguments going on about a business. The business may not have even responded to the fake news, but you have promoters who are actively engaging and saying, no, this is not the case. And that's where every business wants to be at, where even without taking an action, their promoters are defending them. But you cannot get to that point if you haven't built that community, if you haven't built that influence, if you haven't engaged your stakeholders, if you haven't provided them with a story that sticks. So it's really valuable for a business to craft their story, tell their story, consistently push out their stories, and then build that community that will be there for them when they need it in a time of crisis. Now, add to that, finally, is the importance of listening and monitoring. At this point in time, any business that does not invest in listening and monitoring what people are saying around it, not necessarily directly about what it does, but the industry in which it operates, the things that are important to it, will be missing out. Because it's in the listening and monitoring that a business is able to really catch where the issues are, nip them in the bud before they grow. So when you think about it, if a business has a strategy that works, that includes community building, that includes listening and monitoring, and of course, that includes storytelling, there's a lot of things that can happen, but fake news may not take hold. It may be a trend, it may go viral in a moment, but it won't take hold. So I'd say yes, that in the beginning, that was partially the intention. It was important to build that currency, to have a social license to operate, and ensure that you could protect yourself in times. Now it has transcended that. Now it's become more about purpose. It's become more about, actually living values as a business, as a corporate entity. So I can see how people would say that in the past, it just seemed so empty. But now corporate relations is bigger than just empty rhetoric. It's bigger than empty CSR initiatives. It's now about purpose. It's about impact. It's become vital to a business's bottom line. So you'll find that in certain places, in Silicon Valley, for instance, it's become common to see a CCO, a Chief Communications Officer, and then also to have board members who are specifically from marketing and communications fields. So that's partly because the value of reputation and influence has transcended what used to be in the past just by the way aspect of business. So it's become so vital that most businesses worth their salt are considering it as a key function that needs to be represented where the decisions are made. So it's not fully taking hold yet, but I do foresee that in the future, we will see many more CCOs, we will see many more board members who are strongly from marketing and communications fields and whose input into the business decision-making is from that perspective. And it is actually happening already in Ghana, by the way. I love that question. Because someone has asked me before and I actually stood there confused for a minute. I couldn't answer that question because I was like, I don't think I've thought about this before. So here's what I think. A person who's great at communication or who is great at PR and influence is someone who understands stories. Someone who understands how to craft stories, how to tell stories, how to engage with the people who hear the stories and who make the stories. So it's very important. Everything communication and marketing comes down to that aspect of storytelling. It's also important to adapt. So in crafting, telling, learning, engaging, and interacting with stories, what happens is that you are building currency, you're building influence, and you're engaging with all the various stakeholders that are important to a business's growth. So anyone worth their salt in this business has to explore, understand, be open, hear everything that's going on, because you can't tell stories without being plugged into the system and plugged into the community. I'd say get your feet wet. It's absolutely vital to get experience. In communications, I've seen people who have not gone to school for communications excel at communications just because they have been exposed. So you have to get experience. Sometimes the experience is not formal experience. It could be informal experience. It could be activities happening around you, your community. That experience becomes so vital because as a communicator, it's important to relate. It's important to understand. You can only get that understanding if you have seen it. And it's something that cannot be taken away from you. So get your feet wet, get out there, get out of your comfort zone, explore. Also, do not be afraid of failure, because the beauty of failure is that failure in itself is experience building, because then you know what doesn't work. My career has thrived because I have such a wide spectrum of experience. I have been blessed to have worked among various types of businesses with different types of business functionaries, and then across the full spectrum of communications, from digital to events to corporate communications to digital marketing, you name it. Now, all of these experiences did not necessarily come from my one job. It came from being a busybody. It came from being involved, being interested, taking a part, and sometimes just listening and observing, which is also valuable. So get your feet wet, don't be afraid to fail, and really do what makes you happy. Because if you're not happy at what you do, or you're not happy doing what you do, then it's not what you should be doing. I would live in Ghana, but have the ability to get out at any time, because the comfort of home is so welcoming that, you want to get out for a while, you want to explore, you want to have fun, you want to maybe just take time out, but coming home feels really good. So I like living in Ghana. It works for me. I will make an Indian curry. So I would make butter chicken with jeera rice. That's because I got that recipe really perfect, and I make it so good every time. And it's very different, so it makes it an exciting dinner, not your usual. First law is that it should be a crime to litter. Now, it's already a law, however, it's not enforced. But trash bothers me a lot. I think that the country is getting filthier by the day, and I don't see enough action being taken. So, yes, the beauty of the law is that the law exists, but the effort now will be enforcing that law, because Ghana is quite dirty and we need to do something about it.